If you take a look behind me, you can see police are still investigating the some 95 acres belonging to Todd Colep. Colep is linked to 7 murders, 3 of which were found on this property here in Woodruff. But some people in the area are now concerned with reviews he posted on Amazon and how that will affect this case. It's been almost a year since the floods hit Columbia, and places in the Midlands are still trying to rebuild from all the damage it caused. Here at the Columbia Canal and Riverfront Park, this bridge behind me used to be open to the public, but now it's closed off by a gate because repairs are still being made. In the next 5 to 10 years, pilots will begin stepping out of the cockpit and retiring, creating one of the prime careers of 2020 and into 2030. Officers in training are taking this blue dummy gun with them to a knife fight with another officer in week 4 in defensive tactics, but it's also traveling with them into week 7 as they go into practical problems. AAA experts say that although there's been a disruption to the pipeline, there's no reason to panic because it should be repaired and restored by tomorrow. AAA expects car travel to increase this Thanksgiving, but as you get into your car and get ready to hit the road, make sure you have enough gas to get you where you need to go and your phone by your side. Thursday, November 3rd, Todd Colep was arrested for kidnapping Kayla Brown, a woman who worked for him. She disappeared on August 31st and was found alive, chained in this container. 2 days later, before the 13th anniversary of one of the biggest cold cases in the state, Colep confessed to killing 4 people at Superbike Motorsports on November 6, 2003, a confession that shocked realtor Jane Smith as she remembers the day Superbike was auctioned.
And I just went there for the auction that day, and it was a very somber and unnerving feeling to walk around in there and look at the place, and I just remember looking around in the crowd and wondering if perchance that the murderer would have had the nerve to come back and just blend into a crowd.
Following his arrest, police brought Colep out to his Woodruff property after finding the body of Brown's boyfriend, Charlie Carver. Colep showed police 2 additional grave sites, and on Monday, November 7th,
we did discover a second body today. I was able to remove the body discovered yesterday on today's date, and also was able to remove the second body today.
the following days have only brought more searching and digging into the life of the alleged serial killer. If you take a look behind me, you can see police are still investigating the some 95 acres belonging to Todd Colep. Colep is linked to 7 murders, 3 of which were found on this property here in Woodruff. But some people in the area are now concerned with reviews he posted on Amazon and how that will affect this case. Reviews on knives, padlocks, and more declaring how he would use them against another person scared people that lived close by.
I do think they should have been caught earlier because they're not your normal postings or reviews that you would put on padlocks or knives. So it's kind of like, why wasn't it reported before now?
And police are still investigating these Amazon posts. But as for the case, it happened too close to home for a lot of people. But the community has come together to mourn, to pray, and to heal. Jennifer Harmon, Carolina News. Damaged houses, crumbled dams, and cracked roads. This is what Columbia saw last October when the biggest environmental disaster since Hurricane Hugo hit South Carolina. Hundreds of roads and bridges were closed due to dam failures throughout the Midlands. And for biker Robert Socks, his daily routine of riding alongside the Congaree River was put on hold.
Well, I really just didn't come down here even. When I would drive down the highway, I would always take a peek over just to see if there was any progress.
But all he could see was the damage that started on October 4th.
When we got here, the water in the canal was probably 8 feet higher than it is now. I mean, it was right at the lip of the levee.
Not even 24 hours later, the canal breached and the water dropped 25 feet. It's been almost a year since the floods hit Columbia, and places in the Midlands are still trying to rebuild from all the damage it caused. Here at the Columbia Canal and Riverfront Park, this bridge behind me used to be open to the public, but now it's closed off by a gate because repairs are still being made. Even though the northern side of the canal is open, Socks is still having to make adjustments to his 20-mile bike ride, but says improvements were made before the park reopened in March of this year.
for us bikers, there was the sandy part and the paved part, and there was a big drop often, and now that's all smoothed out. So that, sounds little, but that was a big improvement when you have to jump off and pass people.
As the park continues to rebuild, Watson says improvements are still being made to get the park back to 100% for people like Sox that enjoy the canal nearly every day. Jennifer Harmon, Carolina News. From the time a plane takes off to the time it lands, pilots are our eyes in the sky. For some, it's a mode of transportation. For others, it's a career. But for flight student Matthew Harmon, it's been a passion since he was just 7 years old.
Ever since the first time I flew, the adrenaline you get when you're rushing down the runway and the wheels come up off the ground really sparked the fuel for me to finally do it. When I was finally old enough, I started doing it.
At 16 years old, Matthew is currently one of about 35 students going through flight school, but he's one of the few that want to go for more than just his private pilot's license. Due to students only wanting their private pilot's licenses for personal use, the airlines are beginning to see a shortage of pilots entering the commercial field.
The military is producing approximately 20% of pilots in the civilian world, and the civilian schools are producing or needing to produce about 80%. And that's where there's a little bit of a shortage, and so the airlines are needing to replenish their pilot pool.
Currently, between Delta, United, and American Airlines, there are over 40,000 active pilots, but that number is about to take a nosedive. In the next 5 to 10 years, pilots will begin stepping out of the cockpit and retiring, creating one of the prime careers of 2020 and into 2030. Post 9/11, people began to choose different careers, so the airlines raised the retirement age to help the gap. But Delta Airlines Captain William Brayford is expecting this next shortage to be even greater.
The next 5 years looks like approximately 2,000 pilots will mandatorily retire from Delta, but in the next 10, you're looking in the neighborhood of 6,000, and that's just one airline.
Nearly 20 to 30,000 pilots will retire in the next 10 years, creating job opportunities for people like Matthew.
If you're in it for money, you're going into the wrong profession. It's not one that you do for money. It's one that you just do it because you have a passion to fly.
And Matthew definitely has the flying fever. Jennifer Harmon, Carolina News.